had some drainage issues in Cocopelli subdivision, and we have gone out to for RFP and hired a private consultant to help us do a drainage study in the Cocopelli area as well as the Blanco Arroyo and the Hampton Arroyo. And that engineering firm has been on site for the last day or 2 days maybe and collecting data. And tonight we're gathered mainly to gather information and questions from you. There's no solution that's been figured out or engineered right yet. We're still in the study stage. So this tonight is the kickoff meeting and is a great opportunity for you to ask questions and tell your story. We'll be asking you to bring pictures forward, and back on the back table there we have a questionnaire that we'd like to have you fill out. But if you have other comments that you don't see on the handout, please turn the page over and write to your heart's content. If that's not on paper, add some more paper and send it in. We'll be receiving your comments out of my shop and out at Public Works out on Western Drive. So Jim will get into that in a minute. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Jim D'Angelo from AECOM. Jim.
Thank you. Good morning, or good evening, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning, yeah. It's been a long day. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All right, I'm not used to the microphone, so if I'm too loud, let me know. I usually don't use one. So as Bill alluded to, we're here to talk tonight specifically about the Cocopelli and the Hampton Arroyo. We will walk around the community for the past 2 days looking at things that may have been in your backyard or your neighbor's backyard down in the arroyos, getting the information we need to do what we do. Tonight's purpose is to inform you about what we're here to do, why we're here, and to show you the timeline that we have laid out. We're just beginning this process. So we're not going to be able to answer your questions about what 6 inches of water can do or how we're going to fix puddle A or puddle B. We're just at the beginning phase of this project. But we will get to a point where we're going to be talking about those details down the road in other meetings. What you should have in front of you or with you is a agenda, as well as a questionnaire and a subset of the slides, or a printout of the slide that I'm going to be talking about today. You can use those any way you want. Don't stress out over the questionnaire. We're really looking to get your feedback with that. So if you don't want to put your name on it, that's fine. But one sentence bill anyway, that's okay. If you don't understand or want to answer the question about what your role in the community is, that's okay too. If you want to use it just to write a bunch of data on the back, that's great. So please utilize that as you see fit. Okay? Before we get really rolling here, we have a sign-in sheet. We'd like to know who's here. So has everybody signed in? Has anybody not signed in? Okay. We'll get rolling. I brought 2 gentlemen with me today. They're in the back. Mark McIntosh and Sheriff Campbell. Guys, could you wave to us, please? These guys are with me at AECOM. AECOM is a worldwide engineering firm. Our company does just about anything that involves engineering throughout the world. I'm based out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. The gentlemen that have joined me are out of Phoenix. We also have offices in Denver and every other major city just about in the country. But we're going to be utilizing the Albuquerque office staff and the Phoenix staff to find solutions for your community. That's what we're here. Specifically, the gentlemen that are here are engineers, water engineers, floodplain engineers, and I myself am a hazard mitigation specialist. I travel the country looking at flood hazards and try to find solutions for folks. I dabble in post-disasters and planning and that sort of thing. So unfortunately, what I've seen in your community isn't unique, but that does mean that we bring experience to the table to help you solve those problems. Any questions so far? All right. So why are we here? Reoccurring flooding issues. We've seen the evidence, and I know it's probably touched everybody in this room personally. Having water in your house is a horrible thing. Having water in your front yard and your driveway is bad too. Really has a large impact on your life. The water brings sediment, right? The water erodes and drops sediment. That has a lasting impact on your property and on your possessions. It's also a big problem to public safety. We've all seen that guy that has to get rescued as he drove into the arroyo and got flooded downstream. As an aside, I can tell you that more people are killed every year in this country in their cars in fresh water than all the hurricanes combined. So keep that in mind. There's a big public safety risk. That's why we're here. It's a quality of life issue. If you hop in your car and have to worry about what's going to happen, you know that impacts your day. You know that you feel less safe, less satisfied, and that has a long-term effect. So the city recognized these risks and put it out an RFP, and we responded to that. It's also in the capital improvements plan. So we looked at the problem and thought we could offer some solutions, put our name in the hat, and we're selected. And that's what brings us here today.
So what's RFP?
Request for proposals.
Okay.
Essentially, a professional way to ask for applicants to put their name in the hat for the job. So we have the project for the Hampton and the Kokopelli. What are our goals with this project? We want to reduce the risks that you face and the impacts to life. And we're going to do that by understanding the existing drainage characteristics for the Hampton and Kokopelli subdivision. That's what we're out there today beginning to do. We're going to look at potential mitigation actions. By mitigation actions, I mean things that we could do that are both tangible and intangible that can make the community more resilient. So an idea of a tangible thing might be a dam or a drainage basin or a bigger pipe, something that you can see. Intangibles, maybe change the zoning or look at emergency plans or that sort of thing, things that are not things that you build. We want you to be aware. I know everybody in the room is aware of the problem or you wouldn't be sitting here, but really take that next step from a public awareness and understanding of the problem to help us find solutions that are acceptable. We could say we're going to bulldoze the houses and the problem goes away, but we all know that's not an acceptable solution. As a floodplain manager, sometimes that's what I want to do, but I know we got to live there. And finally, we're going to create some conceptual drawings and drainage designs and look at costs of that mitigation. Start laying out the very beginnings of a plan for those solutions. So that's where our project will take us. Questions? A little bit about the scope. So right now we're talking about the Hampton and the Kokopelli. We do have also the Blanco Arroyo on one of our projects. We will be having a meeting for that in March. So if you're interested in that, we're not ignoring you. We just chose these two to do first. The Blanco will be right behind it. And as we move into the process, we'll do co-process with it. So at the end of the day, they'll finish at almost the same time. We're here because public outreach is an important part of the project. You guys are impacted by it. The project will impact you at the end of the day. Nobody knows better how those storms impacted you than you. We're here to capture some of that information. First phase, we're going to collect the data. That was today. It's going to be ongoing. We're still working through that. We're going to be looking at as-built information of the bridges. We're going to be looking at the information we collected live that the community has. The data that you're able to provide us today, hopefully, that sort of thing. Phase 2, down the road, we're going to look at the hydrology and the hydraulics. Hydrology is how much water. So if you dump water, the rains over a certain amount of area, how much water can we expect at a certain point when we'll get there? That's our hydrology. Hydraulics is what does that water do as it interacts with the ground surface. So we'll be studying both of those things that work together. And that'll give us a really good idea of the threats that you face in a model. It'll be a computer-based model. We'll be using two-dimensional modeling where that's necessary, one-dimensional modeling where we can, to get a really good idea of how much water is at a given place at a given time and how fast is it moving. Once that's done, we're going to do an alternative analysis. Now for the Hampton Arroyo, we're really going to be stopping our process at this point at the understanding of the risk. And tie that then into the Kokopelli subdivision where we'll go to the next step and really looking at an alternatives analysis of specific design issues. A little bit more about design. These are some of the things that we're going to be looking for. Survey, topography, engineering data. If any of you have that information, if you have a specific site survey or happen to, for whatever reason, have a culvert design in your backyard that you're completely aware of, please get it to us, get it to Bill, send that information to him. The field investigation has happened, it's going to be ongoing, you may see us out there. We may be in the newspaper tomorrow, I know the press is out there taking pictures of us today, and then information from stakeholders. We haven't been idle. This project is underway to a degree. We have done some preliminary work. And by preliminary, I mean we've utilized the information we've been able to obtain off of readily available data sources. So we did some of that work to prepare for the RFP, and we've done some work since. Here's a map we generated, generally looking at the Hampton Arroyo from its confluence with the Animas up to the end of our study. This is about where we're going to terminate our study outside of the Coca-Cola subdivision.
Okay, what about 5 Flattop Road? South Flattop Road. What about that road?
In
The
what regard?
water come from up there, down in through the subdivision.
Right, this is, actually what's on this map right now, this is the FEMA identified floodplain. So this is where FEMA thinks the floodplain is.
So what
right
area are
now.
you talking about studying?
Our detailed study is laid out in this red area. This is our proposed detailed study area at this point.
What about the water?
We're going to be,
Vortex there?
well, the water, we'll be looking at water characteristics as it comes collected in the headwaters and moves down.
That's not where the flood come from. That ain't where the flood is.
I don't understand your question.
The flood, see where it says Little Rabbit there? Little Rabbit Drive?
Right here.
That's where the flood come from.
I understand that, I'm getting to
The
that.
hills
Oh,
behind
okay.
it.
Okay?
Okay.
So this is specifically for the Hampton. This is some of the mapping that we've done right now for the Cocopelli. Little Rabbit's right here. We'll be looking at this subdivision as well moving forward. So we'll be looking at the large basin and trying to understand. We already know, we were out there today, saw the water come through the fingerlings, the small drainages, hit Little Rabbit, dump a lot of sediment, know it impacts swift. You've seen the erosion. We've seen what it does as it moves through the subdivision on its way down into the Hampton Road. That's all part of what we'll be looking at.
What about the water that came from across that little damn road?
Okay.
Yeah,
That's part of the
There was
overall
a-
watershed that we'll be studying.
that's part of it.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of flooding there too.
Yeah, it literally come down there,
It
come
just-
across two
Okay, it
locations.
was-
These maps are done to show where we're going to be looking at the detailed information, but it doesn't give you the true story of the level of areas that we're going to be looking at. This wasn't designed to be, okay, we're going to only look at this narrow corridor.
Yeah, okay.
We did some preliminary modeling on the Cocopelli, just to get an idea of what's going on and pull this. And this is a depth grid map. Generally, really cursory at this point, but the darker blue is the deeper water.
What is the darker blue?
I don't have a scale on here.
It just means it's a greater depth of flow. So that's where the water's deepest. The darker blue you go.
Now, water
That's where
enters
the
all
water
down.
would be deepest if there was water there.
Right.
Did you know how much water fell? Are you aware of that?
How much rain fell?
Yeah.
I've been told it's upwards of 4 inches in 45 minutes. Does anybody, that'd be a great piece of information. Does anybody have a rain gauge in their backyard?
It was like 3.5 inches in like 25 minutes.
You have a rain gauge? Is that-
Well, I have a lot of buckets and stuff. They all have 3.5 inches.
Fair enough. So that's part of our hydrology, understanding how much water fell, and then using that to move forward to understand how much water might fall in the future storm. So we're really not looking backwards as much as we are looking forward. What might happen, planning for that, using what has happened as a basis for planning moving ahead.
Okay.
Did they explain to you this was the second time this has happened? Did he told you that?
Yes, I'm aware that there were two incidents.
Two incidents. Right.
So really what you're looking for, what
Been three.
you may have been hoping to hear today, but we're not going to be able to give you those answers for a couple of months, is what can we do? What are our mitigation actions? And that's going to be our last phase of this project, an alternative analysis, where we'll look at some activities that we can undertake and what the costs are to help alleviate the problem. And to do that, we'll be prioritizing the problematic areas. We're going to be looking at concepts within the 25-year event, maybe some other reoccurrence intervals, and create some mapping associated with that. Something I like to do, though, is I like to get an idea of what folks understand about this concept here, 25-year event. Does anybody here have FEMA flood insurance? Okay. And do you know what that's based off of, what your event with FEMA flood insurance is based off of?
Actually, I don't. I just know I had to buy it.
So, well, the way it works for FEMA is they've identified the 100-year floodplain. And what that is a flood that happens statistically one time every 100 years. Can it happen twice in the same day? Maybe not twice in the same day, but it can certainly happen twice in the same week. This is just a statistic. You know, you roll roulette, 7 is not going to come up 3 times in a row. I've been there when it's done 3 times in a row. I've lost a lot of money doing that. Same kind of thing. The 25-year event is a storm that will happen statistically once every 25 years. One of the reasons that number is important is at the end of the day, we're going to come up with activities, and you folks are going to want to interact with, we're going to want to enact those activities. But that takes money. Where can you get that money? Where do you find the money to build a dam or retention basin or what have you? You go to the federal government. FEMA has money available, mitigation money, but to do that, you need to fit within their criteria. And their criteria is essentially a cost-benefit analysis. Is the money we invest today going to pay off statistically down the road? That's why the 25 years is important, because that's roughly where the mitigation actions need to sit. Kind of an interesting concept that nobody wants to think about while I'm outside of that event, because it does impact you, and that's what we need to look at. So, where are we going to be, and when are we going to get there? Here's a project schedule. These dates on here are what we have planned out. They are tentative, however, to a degree. The next time that we want to get together with you folks, we're going to have some data. We're going to be able to talk to you about what the hydrology and hydraulic studies have showed us. Tentatively, we have that slated for April 7th. I picked that date by looking at the calendar and our schedule. It's going to move, but it's going to be generally in that area. It will not be April 1st, that's my birthday. I'm sorry I'm not working that day, but it'll be later. We're going to take that data, we're going to have an opportunity to look at it, we'll make it available to you, you'll be able to comment on it, and then we'll work into the alternative, We'll work into the alternative analysis, and then have another public meeting to show you folks what we've come up with. That will be at the end of May. Right now, May 26th. Our project is slated to be done roughly a month from then, the end of June. Any questions on the schedule?
That's the survey, right? You're talking the survey. 627. The survey will be done.
Our project at this stage, we will have completed the study, we'll have gone through the alternative analysis and completed our final report on 6/27. Okay, so what are our next steps? What's going to happen from here? Following right along with the schedule. We're going to finish our data field collection. We're going to finish collecting our data. We're going to review any existing materials we're able to collect from you folks or from wherever else we can get it. We're going to look at your stakeholder input, and we're going to begin our H&H, our hydrology and hydraulics. That's where we're at right now. So that brings me to the survey. If you could, like I said, complete it before you leave. If you want to take it home and fill it out, by all means, go ahead and do that. We're going to give you 2 weeks to do whatever you like with it. If you want to go home and just write a letter, and that letter includes photographs, that would be awesome. that'd be great. You kept them in the bill.
You brought up photographs 2 or 3 times. What, the photographs that were sent in, right after that last flood, do they still have, you still have
I
all
think
those?
Josh probably has those, yeah.
Okay. Or do you need them resent, or?
We'll check with Josh. but,
Did you get those photographs?
No, we're still collecting data, so.
So it doesn't hurt to resend them.
I
that's
mean,
for
there
sure.
was hundreds of people here, 100 people here. This is like no turnout, nobody
Now,
was
if
there.
you- let me couch that a little bit about the photographs. If you send me a picture of your backyard of a mud puddle, that picture means a lot to you. You know what that mud puddle is, you know how deep it was, you know where it is. Well, I don't know anything about it. So please include some description as to what that mud puddle is or was or does. You know it was 4 inches deep, can you tell me where in the community it was, because I may not have your address. That sort of thing will be very useful for us.
When will you be out there so we can meet you?
Well, you missed your chance today. We walked the entirety of the Arroyo today, as well as drove through it, and we're out taking pictures throughout the Cocopelli subdivision today. We may be out there tomorrow collecting the last little bit of data. Haven't really figured that out.
That's just it, nobody knew. Obviously, nobody knew about this meeting other than people that had maybe Facebook or internet.
Josh sent out an email.
I mean, there was like 68
There's a
people
lot of people
got
that don't
flooded.
have,
2 feet of water
Yeah, he
running
sent out
in
all
one
people
door and
here
out the
that
other.
had signed up with their email addresses on the thing.
So, you know, hanging out at the mailbox would have got you more than you got today. After work, you
It
know.
was posted on our website, and it was posted on Facebook, and the email went out that to all the interested parties that were here last time, that listed their email address, so if they elected not to come, then kind of where that's at.
So will you check with Josh to see if he has those pictures, or,
Yes, sir, I will.
you know, and let us know?
Where is Josh? Josh is not here.
Yeah.
I don't want you to think that because we did knock on your door, that you're SOL here. The work that we're doing, we're really looking at the big picture of the watershed and understanding, based off the scientific data, where the water moves. The information that you're going to be able to provide us is going to help us understand how to adjust our model to replicate what really occurred.
You could kind of see it up there.
Yeah, it's very evident. You know, we're looking, look upstream, you can see the rill. You look at the road surface and it's stained with sediment. You look downstream, you can either see the retaining wall that the person blocked because they were sick of their house getting flooded, or you can see the rill here as the water moves downstream. You can see the holes underneath the fences. We saw some sandbags out there. Yeah, it runs down concrete that's cracking or the retaining wall that's sliding. We know what we're looking for. We spent a lot of time out there.
You can see quite a lot of.
Yeah. Okay. So here we are at the question stage, and we've gotten some already. And I'll stand here and answer other questions that you might have. If I can't answer them, I might ask some of my colleagues to.
Do you know yet whether or not you'll be out there tomorrow? The reason I ask is the city posted a note on this bulletin board outside that said 24th through the 26th, and today's the 25th. So, I don't know, anybody planning on being out there, or?
At this stage now, I can tell you that we're not going to be in the Cocopelli subdivision tomorrow. I believe we have maybe 1 or 2 culverts to look at the very bottom of the Blanco. We're not going to be, I can't tell you what time, and I can't tell you for sure that we're actually going to go. Mark?
Yeah, alternatively, we're gonna be out here in about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, and for the Blanco kickoff or outreach meeting, and maybe that could provide some additional time we can.
Yeah.
The Blanco, right? You'll be here again for that?
Yes, sir. Yeah, so that's kind of the sister study. We pulled together the Cocopelli and the Hampton because they're related to each other. The water flows out of the Cocopelli to the Hampton. The Blanco stands on its own. It's a distinct watershed. And so we'll be having that outreach meeting later, and then these studies will then be processed, parallel process with the same general timeline.
Bill, is the city funding this study?
Yes, sir.
Is it being funded through where? Through general fund or where?
Okay.
This one is through the road fund.
Okay, can somebody tell me what the RFP amount was? Does anybody know what that?
It's around 100,000, something like that.
Right, it's split up. We've got the three different studies. We have
94,
one.
96.
And now altogether, the whole RFP was
About 230,000.
230?
For all three,
And this
for
is-
all three studies.
We could have made a more concerted effort to get people here. Could have been
And posted on the mailboxes in
that. We could have had a crowd here if we had a little resource. I mean, a real crowd.
Because there was people that lost everything. Completely everything.
Their house now was what, valued at 260,000, their house now valued at 140.
Yeah, flooding's a terrible thing. I've seen it. I've been there. I know what it is to go through these communities and see it.
And they would be here.
Yeah.
They're not.
Bill, maybe we should mail out the notices to people.
Maybe. But the idea, as Josh put forward before in the original meeting, is that if you wanted to be contacted for future meetings, then you put your email address on the sign-in sheet, and then you would be contacted for future meetings, which this is.
What if someone doesn't have
But
email?
not everyone has
I mean,
email.
it seems
Or
like the
doesn't check
city
it
would have
every
access to
single day.
addresses.
So,
That's a pretty lame excuse, man. That's lame. If you were having a garage sale, you'd have signs out there, you know, on the mailbox, here and there, and you'd have a crowd there at your garage sale.
as I said, it was posted on the website, Facebook, and all of our normal public notice procedures, as well as emails were sent out.
I got mine. I'm here.
Exactly.
The door tags or something like that would have been.
If the city will run off about 200 8.5 by 11 flyers, I'll hand them out.
And it won't cost all that. You spent $200,000 and you did, that's all you did, you know? Your minimum amount of effort. Minimum effort.
Point out too that we have 2 other public meetings scheduled for April and May.
Well,
That will also be.
yeah, and we'll have follow-up meetings on this study.
And what kind of effort are we gonna get on notification?
And if you know, excuse me, so if you know people that want to have input, have them contact my office and we can send them out a questionnaire, or they don't need to have a questionnaire. They can write a letter, as Jim said, send it to me, I'll get it to Jim, and we can take care of it that way. Just because people didn't show up at the meeting tonight doesn't mean they can't have input. So if you know people that want to have input, make sure you contact them, get a hold of me, I can hook them up with a questionnaire and give them my address, and it can be sent out here, and we can include them in the input phase.
You know,
I
we
like
can
the
also
idea
give you.
better of passing out flyers. I'll take 100 of those 200. We'll pass them out. I don't think it's a Cocobelli's residents' responsibility to go to contact Bill. I think that he should make an effort to contact everybody up there. And I don't think that's been done.
Well, we'll be able to provide, as well, the materials we have today are all in the city's possession at this point. And so, if you have folks that are interested and would like to have that presentation, we'll get it to you, you can transmit it. Yes, ma'am?
You're coming back on, for the next public meeting for this study on April 7th, but this gentleman said you'll be out here in 2 weeks for the Blanco one, so is there gonna be a public meeting like tonight for the Blanco one?
Yes, ma'am. We haven't finalized a date yet for that, but there will be
But you're gonna be here in 2 weeks, and then it would take a day or two before we would have the public meeting, is that how tonight went? You've been here since yesterday, and tonight was the public meeting?
Right, we came in yesterday, began our field work, and continued it today.
So I think now would be the time that we should start, passing out flyers for the people who's, are in that Blanco Arroyo area, because sometimes you need 2 weeks.
I don't like to do a field study in one day. No, much damage that didn't make sense to me.
Well, I want to point out that Jim and I were here for 2 days prior in September.
Did you guys look at the wash that came over Neville Den Road that got all of us on Sabina and all that? And,
We looked at that
Yeah.
this morning.
You're down there this morning.
yeah?
The one coming across with somewhat of a new culvert, I think he chopped some trees
Yeah, we
down.
live right in front of that
Yeah.
brand new court
Okay.
that it ran all through our house.
Yeah, so we looked at that and documented all that and talked about the issues there with Bill this afternoon, yeah. So that's all gonna be incorporated in the study. And like Jim was saying, mitigation actions are gonna be identified. What would provide the best bang for your buck for a flooding solution?
Okay, now is it true? Well, I know it's true. XTO got it approved to P&A that well
I
that's up
haven't,
there.
I haven't heard from XTO.
I have. And we don't know when it's gonna happen yet, but they were talking about silt traps, things like that you guys and stuff were thinking about, or,
We're talking about a detention pond, and they're gonna build it. That's what we're talking about.
XTO doesn't build ponds, they build silt traps.
Well, that's
Or
not what they
build
told
it.
me. So you're in a different discussion than I am. So, the last time I talked with the XTO folks, they said they were still working on it. And that's been 2 months ago.
Okay, who did you talk to?
I don't remember his name. Matt seems to ring a bell, but I don't remember. So
the
that's
next meeting's April 7th. What was the date on the May one?
May 26th.
26, if I recall. This is
Tentative.
tentative case.
Yeah.
This is our plan at this point.
Was it Brett, Bill? You don't remember?
Does anybody have any questions over how we're going to, any technical questions associated with technology we'll be using or how we go about this? This is the kind of work that we do, this is our bread and butter. So it might seem shocking to you that we're looking at field work over just a couple of days. That's what it takes. We have very good data that we'll be utilizing for these models. That's what we do.
So you're gonna build retention dams or drain ditches
Am I gonna build them?
or you're gonna request, you're gonna request how it's gonna work, how the water's gonna run. You're gonna make the water run a certain way, is that what you do?
We're gonna do the science, to understand how the water runs today.
Yeah.
We're gonna look at how that impacts the community, and then we're gonna look at potential solutions to solve problems, those impacts.
Like how to make the water run another way.
Right, maybe potentially, one solution might be, instead of the water going left, make it go right. Another solution might be a giant dam. We haven't gotten anywhere near those solutions yet, but you all know how water is moved and controlled, you've seen it, so.
But spending $200-some-thousand on hydrological studies does not mean your solution goes to a fix. It's just a suggestion. It doesn't mean that the city's gonna even
This is the first step in
take
any
any
kind of
advice
solution.
to do it, right?
What we are undertaking is the first step in understanding the problem and looking at potential solutions. To go out there with a track hoe and build something without understanding what you're doing could potentially cause a lot more problems that are being solved. So we're taking the first step.
That's what we want. We don't wanna make more problems than we already have. That's what we're after.
But we don't want baby steps either, because the rains are fixing to come again. So, it's coming around time again for it to hit. So, where do you go there, How long is this gonna take from start to finish?
It's gonna take a while, because as Jim indicated that, first of all, we do the science, do the study, do the expected engineering fixes. And then we're gonna have to come up with the money to do it. And we're not talking about a cheap fix here. This is gonna be very expensive, in the millions. So, and last I knew, I don't think Kathy has that kind of money right now. So, I mean, we can patch it.
Yeah.
Oh, Kathy, it's your money?
Apparently.
Miss, you had a question? You
Roll down.
had a question?
That's good. Ruth, you're on.
I just wondered, did you look at all of the trees and all the stuff in the arroyo that might be removed?
Yeah, you literally walked up and down that arroyo today.
And there's all kinds of brush, what are they called? Cedar something.
Salt cedar.
Yeah, and there's some real nice mule deer as well. Down there we ran into, and saw a bunch of, what I'm guessing are raccoon tracks. We're down there, we saw what's going on. Walked under the bridges, looked at the pipes.
In the 1960s, it took out Hutch's garage down
The Hampton,
there. Yeah. You know where Hutch's garage is?
so right there at the confluence,
With the highway.
the highway.
Took the highway out, Hutch's garage, all the bridges. The whole thing.
Do you know when the grade control structures were put in at the bottom of the Hampton there between the highway and, I guess that's just the river, between the highway and the NMS, those big concrete things that look like stair steps?
At McCoy, is that where?
There are 3 or 4. How many did we find, Sharon?
There were
Near the
four,
school.
4 in total.
4, between the highway and the confluence.
School, right?
I think
There's
there
one
was
there.
Army Corps, wasn't that like in the late 80s, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
Early 90s.
Yeah.
The rock-filled baskets, the, looks like chain link.
Put all
Yeah.
that in.
Okay. Yes, sir.
You mentioned that FEMA has the money if the criteria is met.
Yes.
Do you have any feel at this point in time whether that criteria can be met?
The criteria are essentially 3 things for FEMA mitigation money. First, money has to be available. The money becomes available at the state level after disasters are declared. So currently in the state of New Mexico, there are several $1 million worth of mitigation money waiting to be spent. Now, the state hands that money out to qualified applicants. The second thing you need is you need to have a positive cost-benefit relationship for the life of the project. Typically, we look at structures such as culverts and bridges and that sort of thing at about a 25 to 30 year functional life. So within that period of time, statistically speaking, will the cost of the project save as much or more money to the population than it costs? So that's a mathematical, it's very complicated. FEMA has a book about this big on how to go about doing that calculation. The project needs to be engineering capable, right? So we can't say we're gonna dig a giant hole, put all the water into the hole and pretend it goes away. Not engineeringly feasible. So the project has to be feasible from an engineering perspective. Part of what we're gonna be looking at is a little bit of that balance between a project that's perfect, that will solve every problem, and one that will actually be feasible and fall into that category from a cost mitigation perspective, right? Because if we had all the money in the world, we could build a giant dam and stop every drop of water, but we know that's not cost effective. That's just too expensive. Something that I would like everybody to be aware of is all of the solutions aren't going to solve all of the problems for everybody. It's not going to happen, especially when you start looking at massive floods that go into 100-year or 500-year or 1,000-year criteria. They're very, very hard to design within that cost-benefit solution from the federal government. If you've got the money in your back pocket, you can go ahead and build it. We'd love to design it for you. But you're not going to get that federal match for those mega projects. You're looking at a lot of small projects that, on aggregate, have a big impact. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did.
So we're looking for the right solution that is also fundable.
Yeah.
Ed, would you have answers for FEMA's questions and criteria by 6/27, by June 27th?
No, we won't have all of those answers. We're gonna be at about a 30% feasibility design area, so we'll be able to answer them to a degree, but not 100% until the community looks at an individual problem, and then you would have to go through the exercise of doing that cost-benefit analysis. And that does involve economic impacts, you know, missed trips to work as an example, utility lines, that sort of thing. So it's a very involved process, which can be done. It's not impossible to do by any means, but it's outside the scope of this project.
So what this does, what this first study does, it kicks off the 30% engineering. And then after this study's over, then we'll pick a solution, and then we have to move forward with to 100% engineering. And then that's when we'll be asking for some funding. But we will tailor that 100% engineering package to the fundable package that we get out of this study. If that makes, I hope that makes sense.
What, do you have in mind a time frame for that also?
What, for post 30%?
Yes.
But are you, well, I guess, what's the question is a time frame to complete the 100-year?
The second engineering.
Oh, well, I think we need to take that under advisement with commission, and then we might be able to get some answers later on as to how much funding we're going to have in the future for that second phase, which is really the engineering phase, the design phase. That's all up to the commission, and when that funding is going to be available to do that design.
And there's a lot of factors that go into that design that, other than just the bottom line dollars. So if we're looking at building facilities, we need to worry about right away. Where is it going to be? Who owns the ground? Who's going to maintain it? What's it going to impact? So that aspect of the study goes well beyond, let's build a dam here. It's much more involved. By the end of it, you'll be able to say, let's build this thing here. It needs to meet these criteria. And we can go forward with the project. Yes, ma'am?
Is there a limit on the time with the FEMA funds for the state of New Mexico? Or
Yeah.
is it just a big fund that they have there, or are they directly related to all the flooding New Mexico had last year?
The way that the mitigation funding works is it's established as a percentage of the total disaster for that given disaster. So when the governor declares a state of disaster and the federal government, you've seen on the news, FEMA has declared a disaster in New Mexico, they'll give it a number that sets the timeline in motion. The amount of money is a percentage of the total disaster value. That money is available for up to 2 years to be obligated after that disaster. And there's a whole process for obligation that would go through the State Office of Emergency Management. Then, if that money is not spent, it goes back to FEMA. There are people at the state level that want to see, everybody wants to see that money spent. FEMA wants to see the money spent, the state wants to see it spent. They will help you spend it. There are people that will do that for you. But if it isn't obligated, it goes back. But the money isn't specific to your community. So if there is a disaster down in Socorro tomorrow, unfortunately for Socorro, that money, that same process, is for the entire state. So in essence, Aztec is competing with the entire state of New Mexico for their project. If your project rates 10 on the scale, and there's another project competing with you for the same money that rates 11, the money goes to the 11. But I can tell you that the state of New Mexico has never, ever even come close to spending all the mitigation money that's on the table. It's given back. So if you're able to get to the point where you have a project that meets the federal criteria, there's a very, very good chance that the state will fund up to 75 to 85% of that for the community.
Jim, but isn't it fair to say that without this study, we don't get there?
Without the study, you don't even get to go in the door. So the door's shut. Yeah.
Is that a standard time frame, 2 years?
No, with the federal government, there's no such thing as rock solid, right? Everything, I've been working as a contractor my entire career, and I've broken every rule for my client, the federal government, that they've asked me to keep. That meaning, they can always extend it. Some examples of them being extended, Hurricane Sandy, that timeline was extended. Katrina, that timeline was extended. I haven't seen one extended, however, in New Mexico since the Sierra Grande fire. That one was extended. So who's to say what happens this monsoon season? Really, that's what you're looking at, that window. So you're probably not going to have a project ready in the next 12 months to chase the money that's available today. There's a very, very good chance that there'll be money available tomorrow from just a different bucket. You don't care what bucket it is. It's not going to have a large impact on you folks. And if it's a disaster that's a fire disaster, that doesn't mean that we can't do flooding-related mitigation projects. You can do education-related mitigation projects. There's no correlation between the project and the disaster.
Who in the city of Aztec chases that money? Is there a specific person?
No, it's kind of a group effort between city manager, public works, community development, finance. We pool our resources to keep up with all of those opportunities.
But none of that money can be spent on private property, correct? It all has to be spent on.
Correct, right. Yeah, it'd have to be in the public right of
I
ways.
think that's a fallacy that a lot of people are thinking about, that, okay, we get all this mitigation money, you're gonna come in, it's like, helping us with the repairs. We're not gonna get any of that.
No.
So, I mean, there's no help unless you have flood insurance or anything.
Right, on the private property, I mean, what we're looking at are those infrastructure improvements that would hopefully reduce those damages to
Right.
private property.
It's infrastructure improvements for the community that will keep your fence that was washed out, maybe from being washed out again, but they're not replacing your fence.
One thing that I would like to see through this whole study also, and it should be for anybody that lives up in that subdivision, is somebody come and talk to us, take a look at what we have, and tell us what we should be doing to protect ourselves. And this is.
The first thing you should do is buy flood insurance.
For what happened to us that they wouldn't have
It
paid?
didn't help us.
Yeah, flood insurance doesn't make you whole. It's cheap when you're not in the floodplain, and I know there's no FEMA floodplain in the Coco Valley, so you'll get a it's called preferred rate, maybe grandfather rate if you talk to some folks. But it's a start. It's a simple start. I'm not going to tell you to build walls or levees or dikes in your backyard or dig a hole or push the water over your neighbor's house. Something to keep in mind about water is if you move it off of your property and move it onto somebody else's property, what does that mean? You are now liable for that condition. Depending on how your neighbor likes you, that could be a big problem. So it's a very complicated problem, and that's why we're here. If it were simple, you guys would have had it figured out. This is a complicated engineering problem, and we're going to look at it from a complicated engineering solution. It's just not moving dirt.
Well, and I think that's what this next step is.
Yeah.
The first step is to gather information, gather data, get your input, fill out your questionnaires, write your letters, send your photographs, and then we're going to do the H&H studies, and then at the next meeting, there should be some kind of,
Yeah. So
that involves the next step, and you'll have more input at that phase to approach us and say, well, what about my house?
this is kind of this is a very coarse and very preliminary example of what the H&H study is going to produce. It's going to tell us where the water goes and how deep it gets, how the money gets there. And we'll have information similar to this for that next meeting. So we'll understand that at that point.
So you said that dark blue on that first, right there, that's water.
Right, the blue is water, and the
That's where you're anticipating the drainage is right there.
well, we produced this as a preliminary example for our presentation, but if this were a real model based on the information we have today, and we're going to get the darker the blue, the deeper the water. And you can see, I mean, this isn't oriented the same as the other maps. This is Little Rabbit right here. And we're showing, based on the information we had, drainages coming out of the hills, going through Little Rabbit, drainage coming off of, that's 173 over, is that the number, is that correct?
Yes.
Right through.
Well, what I was looking at is right there at the corner of Tangy Butte and Anasazi. You see,
Here?
get down, right, that's where, that's my house. That's my area.
So I don't want you to use this to do any kind of creative gardening or anything like that. It's really just a picture to show you.
Do I send my rocks down to the Harris down at the end or down to Carmen?
I once had a gentleman tell me that it's not a levee, it's a creative garden wall protecting his house from flood. It didn't stop his community from having to tear it down, but we tried to. Any other questions? Okay, so I'd like to thank you for your time tonight, encourage you to send in those flyers, there's other information. Get it to Bill, Bill will get it to me, and keep your eye open for the next steps. Bill, is there anything you want to add?
Well, only that, I will make a further effort to contact the people in Cocopelli either by mailing or by direct door hangings. Yeah, it's been a complicated world here this week, so, you know, I'll try to get that together.
But you have to remember too, it's not just Cocopelli, there's other people that were flooded in the public that we have to get the word out.
Right.
So it's not just Cocopelli.
Well,
It's,
right.
I know, but I'm just saying, it's not just, we had two public meetings before Mike, one for Cocopelli and then one for the. Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming.
Well, appreciate it.
Good night, everybody, drive safe.
Taking these pictures. We gotta get the word out to all of them.